Welcome back to the Star, Stripes, and Sanatanis podcast, run by second-generation Hindu American teens. It's for teens, by teens. My name is Mansa, and I'm a sophomore at Seabury Hall in Hawaii.
And my name is Samyuktha, and I'm a senior in Lynbrook High School in California.
And we're the West Coast crew.
Yes. Our topic for today is, insert drum roll, the swastika and its misconceptions.
So without further ado, let's get started.
So Mansa, as Hindus, we've all learned about the swastika in different lights, and have been told different stories about what the symbol represents. So for you personally, what has been your journey in learning about the swastika?
Yeah, well, like many young Hindus, I first encountered the swastika in the mandir. And like many Hindus, I never really knew the significance behind the symbol. All I knew was that the symbol was drawn with turmeric and kumkum on a new car, on the Havan Kund, and my notebooks on Diwali. And I 100% knew that this symbol was extremely sacred in my religion.
So you were initially taught that it was a Hindu symbol of faith, used only for pujas and religious purposes?
Yes, initially. However, in middle school, I learned about the swastika being a so-called dangerous symbol. After Diwali, I had the Om symbol and the swastika still on my binder, and this girl asked me, "Why do you have the Nazi symbol on your binder?" And before I had any time to explain, she was just weirded out and left. And at that time, I realized that there's something wrong here and that these two stories just don't line up.
I'm so sorry that this happened to you. So from what I understand, on one hand, you were told at home that the swastika was sacred and treasured in Hinduism. And on the other hand, when you went to school, that the same symbol represented hate, violence, and prejudice?
Exactly. And I bet a lot of other Hindus go through some sort of similar experience. How about you, Samyukta? Did you have an experience that opened your eyes to what the rest of the world has to say about the swastika?
My experience was really similar to yours, Mansa. I also knew that we use the swastika at home for pujas, and understood it to be extremely sacred to my family. So when I saw a Nazi flag with the caption swastika in my school textbook, I just didn't understand how this added up.
Oh, wow, that's rough.
Yeah, 100%. So maybe to clear up some of our doubts, we can discuss the history and the usage of the swastika. And what better way to do this than with our first guest speaker, Vishnupriya. She is part of HSC's advocacy team and KONA, or the Coalition of Hindus in North America's Swastika Education and Awareness Campaign, in which they have done research about the historical and current use of swastika.
Of course, let's do it.
Namaste, Mansa and Samyukta. I'm so happy to be here to talk more about our Hindu symbol swastika.
Namaste, Vishnupriya. So glad you could join us today. We have some questions for you regarding the historical use of the swastika.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So our first question is, what is the origin of the word swastika and what is its significance to Hindus?
Yes, the word swastika is derived from the Sanskrit language and has origins in our Vedas. The word swastika can be broken down into su, meaning goodness, and asti, meaning to be. Thus, it represents prosperity, good fortune, and well-being. And the four arms represents many aspects of Hinduism, such as the four goals of life, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, the four yugas, or time periods, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga, the four Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Vedas.
Wow, that's so beautiful. The swastika has such a beautiful meaning in and of itself. So our second question is, what are some examples of how the swastika was used by Hinduism and other religions?
So we use it at the beginning of our ceremonies. We decorate it in our homes, and we often see Hindu students like you two draw the swastika with turmeric and kumkum in their notebooks to symbolize good luck. When we make big purchases like a new car, we perform a car puja and draw the swastika on it to symbolize prosperity. And while visiting the temple, we hear our pandits chanting Sanskrit mantras with the word swasti in them. So this symbol is an integral part of our Hindu faith. And it's not just Hindus. Other dharmic faiths, such as Buddhism and Jainism, use the symbol in similar ways. We even have a yogasana called the Swastikasana and a mudra in Bharatanatyam depicting the symbol. And what was most surprising to me is that the Navajo Native American tribe used it as a symbol of life and prosperity.
That's incredible. That means the swastika is such an integral part of so many cultures around the world.
So true, yeah. And as the 19th century started to set on, people started to use variants of the swastika all around the world for various other purposes. They used it as a symbol of good luck, and it was seen all around the world and was popular in the media. It was everywhere.
Yeah, I've seen many pictures of it in the logos of Coca-Cola bottles and beer bottles.
This was quite common. They were on Boy Scout badges, stamps, and there was a magazine called the Swastika. The swastika was found on planes of the UK's Air Force as well, until 1939.
And in 1908, a mining community called Swastika was founded in Ontario, Canada, which still exists today.
Now, this is where history diverges, and many say that the swastika's meaning was changed from good to very, very bad.
We have two sources whose accounts of history are different. One is from our own history textbooks, and one is by the Kona Swastika campaign. Samyukta, could you describe your history textbook's account of the history that follows?
Of course. We learned that the swastika was an originally Indian and Hindu symbol, which was appropriated by Hitler and used for evil and prejudice during his regime, and that to this day, the swastika represents hate and Nazi Germany, the Hindu symbol blemished by the acts of Hitler during World War II.
Oh, I see. Now we have a few additional questions for Vishnupriya about their research regarding the swastika's past.
So, namaste again, Vishnupriya. So our first question is, did Hitler appropriate the swastika from Hinduism, like my textbook described?
Absolutely not, Samyukta. The anti-Semitic symbol Hitler used is called the Hakenkreuz in German.
The Hakenkreuz? What's that?
Yes, so it's called the Hakenkreuz. It is German for hooked cross. The inspiration for the Hakenkreuz came from Christianity. The monastery Hitler went to when he was a kid had the symbol, and that's where he got it from. Christian evangelicals who wanted to distance themselves from Hitler's hateful anti-Semitic views intentionally mistranslated the Hakenkreuz to swastika. So the problem here is that the name of an auspicious Hindu symbol is used to incorrectly label a symbol of hate.
Whoa, that's something that my history textbook never taught me, so that's pretty eye-opening. So I guess the next natural question would be, why do the two symbols look so similar if they really are different?
Yeah, so although the symbols look similar because of the four arms, Hitler and the Hakenkreuz have nothing to do with Hinduism and our auspicious symbol swastika. So to emphasize, this is not a case of appropriation. This is a case of intentional mistranslation and mislabeling.
So where can we learn more about the history of the swastika versus the Hakenkreuz?
As part of the Swastika Education and Awareness campaign by Kona, they have created an illustrated informational booklet to increase awareness about the swastika. You can find that at kona.org/swastika. That is COHNA.org/SWASTIKA. Please read through this and share it with your family and community members.
And you guys can do more research regarding the Hakenkreuz. We recommend reading Nikunji's article on Medium about it.
I heard he's the Kona president. Now, let's move on to the current relevance of the swastika. So, Mansa, how is the swastika still relevant to today? And why do we still use it?
Well, for Hindus all around the world and people of other religions who use the symbol, including Buddhists, Jains, and indigenous South American cultures, the swastika remains a symbol of peace and solidarity. People often use the symbol in their prayers and display it on temple walls even today.
True, I've seen it on the mandir I go to often, and in front of many Hindu households.
Yeah, and like we said, numerous Hindus use this symbol on a daily basis. So when the city of New York created a bill to ban many hate symbols from schools, one of the symbols listed was the swastika. Hindus became concerned about the portrayal of this extremely sacred symbol.
Right. So to discuss this bill, we have another guest speaker, and she's also from Kona's Swastika Education and Awareness Project, Shilaka. She's an expert on the bill's history and progression, and is an educator in the state of New York. She definitely knows the bill way better than I do.
Hey guys, namaste. And I've loved hearing about what you guys have been doing. So, what questions do you have?
Yeah, so Didi, our first question for you is, what is the intention of the bill and what does it actually change?
So the intention was to protect the Jewish populace and students from anti-Semitic or hate crimes that occur, and also for African descendant slaves or African Americans to protect them from any anti-bigotry, right? So we fully are aware of the transgenerational trauma that the Jewish people have faced, the genocide of the Roma people, the trauma that African Americans in this country have faced. And we side with them in every way and in solidarity. However, with the bill, what happens is that it's labeling swastika, which is such an old sacred symbol of Hinduism, as a negative symbol and associating it with Hitler's Nazi regime. And that's very concerning for the Hindu community within New York, as well as for educators, students, community members, and community leaders. So the intention of the bill is good, but the verbiage of the swastika is what's concerning for the Hindu community and other dharmic communities as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And our next question is, what is the history and current status of the bill?
Well, the bill is currently effective in legislation in New York, and I believe it is in the Education Committee. And the curricula is to label the swastika and the noose as a hate symbol and a symbol of intolerance, and to incorporate it into the education curriculum from grades 6 through 12.
Oh, wow, that's some great information, really interesting. And furthermore, what will be the effect of this bill on Hindu students in America if passed?
Right. Unfortunately, if it is passed in the current state that it's in, it's going to be quite concerning and detrimental. There is a lot of anti-Asian sentiment already in New York, as well as anti-Hindu sentiments that are quickly spreading with the political climate and societal climate we've been in. And it's confusing to kids when they learn one thing at school and another thing at home. Just like you were talking, Mansa, about your awkward experience. I've had many awkward experiences trying to explain the swastika to others and my peers as well. And being an educator, I've seen Hindu phobia close up. I've seen anti-Semitism. I've seen bullying. I've seen the misunderstanding of different races, religions, ethnicity, sexuality, right? And it will complicate not only students' lives, but also the lives of educators, parents, and their peers, and the community at large. And there's also an identity issue because when you're growing up from within as you're a kid, that identity of being Hindu, there's a lot of shame and fear of associating with something like the swastika, because the swastika is deemed so bad, right? It's part of Nazi Germany. Having the swastika is equivalent to being a Nazi or equivalent with allying with Hitler, right? So that misalignment of our Hindu identity, what the swastika is, and when it's really actually the Hawk and Cruse that should be the actual verbiage of the bill.
Yeah, I know. It's really sad how it's so widespread in so many communities all around the world.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate that people are not nuanced enough to understand or are not as open-minded to talk about it, understanding that it is a difficult topic to talk about. And we do, as Hindus, sympathize and empathize with the millions of Roma people and the Jewish people that suffered within the Holocaust. The swastika to us is also very sacred, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I've heard that Kona doesn't approve of the bill in its current form. What do you wish to change and why?
Yeah, you're right. Kona doesn't approve the bill in its current form, and we're trying to have mutual, respectful dialogue with the sponsors of the bill. But the two crucial things is that we want the wording to be changed. The word swastika should be replaced by the accurate terminology, which is the Hawk and Cruse or hooked cross. And this is what Hitler actually saw when he was a little child, and he used that for his agenda, for his nefarious agenda, right? So he used the Hawk and Cruse to kill millions of people, which translates to the hooked cross, right? And unfortunately, the Christian and evangelical right, like Vishnupriya said, they took our swastika and they maligned it, right? So that's the first part. And the second part Kona wants to do is to propose adding to the bill. So adding to the education curricula, the difference between what the swastika truly represents and what the Hawk and Cruse represents. So there is no confusion or misalignment among students, teachers, parents, and the community. And we can all respectively have this discourse, right? Because, linguistics is a big thing here, right? Because swastika is so pervasive and it always has a negative connotation. If we replace it with something like the Hawk and Cruse or hooked cross, it actually delegitimizes a lot of these white supremacists and neo-Nazi groups.
Yeah, and a lot of a major part of the problem is the lack of awareness, right? Which is something that we have to try to fix.
Right, and that's why the campaign is the Swastika Education and Awareness Campaign, right? We want to have these discussions and have these difficult discussions because we know the swastika is not a symbol of hate, and we know it's something that represents peace and prosperity, right?
Yeah, and I think this problem lies in the focus of our curriculum has on European and Western history. We learn how events occurred from their point of view. Meanwhile, when we learn our religion's place in the world, it only encompasses one chapter in sixth grade history.
I agree. And what the Kona team said was that the term swastika, as we discussed earlier, is a Sanskrit word that does not have any connection in its original form with Hitler. Hitler used the word Hakenkreuz to describe the symbol he used to perpetuate violence.
Yeah, and this symbol, which is shown on the Nazi flag, also looks different from the swastika. The Hakenkreuz is tilted 45 degrees, is the color black, and often has a red background, while the Hindu swastika is usually red or orange and faces either left or right, with dots between each of the arms. And even if the two symbols look the same, they would still have completely different meanings.
Yes, these two symbols represent two distinct ideologies. one of good luck and peace, and the other of hatred and prejudice. And therefore, we believe that the swastika and the Hakenkreuz should be separated and treated in different ways. And by teaching students that the swastika is a hate symbol, New York is either ignorant or dismissive of its rich cultural history in many ancient civilizations.
I totally agree. And we completely support New York's attempt to regard hate symbols, but we want it to be carried out with the proper understanding of the historical origin of the symbols. Differentiating the two symbols in their use, their meaning, and their appearance is key in this case. We urge New York to teach students that the Hakenkreuz was a hate symbol used by Hitler to perpetuate violence and xenophobia, and not the swastika, a symbol of peace for the Hindu community.
Yes, 100%. And Mansa, I've seen one question being asked a lot with regards to this topic by the Hindu community that I would like to mention here, if we have time for it.
Yeah, go for it.
So according to many, Hinduism is a morphing religion, so it evolves based on time, period, and circumstances. So therefore, why can't we just remove or replace the swastika because of the history it has gone through?
Well, Samyukta, I see where you're coming from, and it's true that for many it may represent brutality and violence. However, the original meaning of the symbol is completely different, and because this narrative is not as widespread in the media, this one-sidedness arises, where it's perceived as a hate symbol. And about your Hinduism evolving point, it's important to understand that Hinduism is a religion that heavily values the preservation of its ancient culture. And eradicating a piece of this culture will not only set a bad precedent for future generations by showing that the religion itself can be modified, but it will also harm the ancient culture. This is true for many other cultures as well.
I see what you're saying, sort of. So, is it like the KKK? So their symbol is a cross, which is also the symbol of Christianity. But people disassociate the KKK's cross with the Christian cross and do not attempt to ban the cross because of its use in violence. That would be just outrageous, right? In their minds, the fact that these two are different is already ingrained.
Exactly. So why should we have to give up our sacred symbol? The Nazis' Hakenkreuz and the sacred swastika should be differentiated in the minds of people around the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love having these conversations with you.
Hey, same. So to end it off, we'd like to ask all of you guys listening one final question.
After hearing our discussion today, do you think that you can describe the significance of the swastika in your practice of Hinduism?
So think about it. And that's it, guys. Thank you all for listening. Next episode, we're having a youth take on LGBTQ and Hinduism. This is definitely going to be an amazing episode, and we hope to see you all next week on Sunday at 4 p.m. EST.
Yes, we would love to see you all there. In the meantime, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.
And my name is Samyukta.
And my name is Mansa.
And we're the West Coast crew, signing off for today.